You may recognize the voice of our next moderator from the Talkback morning show on KGVO 1290 AM. As a regular guest, Bob Seidenschwarz discusses global, current events with distinguished guests to give Montanans a better understanding of the complexities of the world around them. Robert Seidenschwarz, a University of Montana alum, began his professional career as a registered representative at IDS Financial Services in 1982. In the spring of 1987, he left IDS to become one of the original founders of the predecessor firm to SG Long & Co. Please join me in welcoming moderator Bob Seidenschwarz, President Emeritus of the World Affairs Council.
Good morning, everybody. Pleasure and honor to be here and to see so many of you here today. I'm going to have Dr. Abraham Kim just do the brief introductions on the bios. Kind of in the process of losing my voice a little bit, and I need to save it for the really interesting and exciting part of what you're going to be exposed to here today. So a warm round of applause for Dr. Kim. Thank you very much.
I'm honored to introduce our two speakers today. First is Mr. Dirk Badenhorst. He's the CEO and founder of the biennial South African International Ballet Competition. Mr. Badenhorst is a South African dancer and a dance therapist. He holds a BA in psychology and philosophy, teacher's diploma in dance and movement and therapy, and an MBA. He studied at the University of Cape Town's dance school and has danced with South Africa's CAPAB Ballet and PACT Ballet. Mr. Badenhorst has performed in Spain at the Jose and Helena Montoya Spanish Dance Company and Austria's Danza Lorca. In 2001, Mr. Badenhorst combines his interest in dance administration, youth development, and to become a founding member of the South African Dance Theater, Ballet Theater, the first independent professional ballet company in South Africa, and has had a very distinguished career in connecting dancers and dance academies and youth and pushing the boundaries of dance across South Africa in mental health, physical handicap, and a lot of different areas. So, and he's currently, as I mentioned, serving as the CEO and founder of the biennial South African International Ballet Competition. Next is Mr. Andile Ndlovu. I hope I got that right. At the Washington Ballet. I introduced you last year, and I had a problem last year too. So please excuse my pronunciation. Andile is from Johannesburg, South Africa, and is in his 8th season with the Washington Ballet after dancing one season with the TWB's studio company. Mr. Ndlovu began his training in Latin America and ballroom dance at the age of 10. And then at 15, he began his training in ballet under Martin Schoenberg, director of the Ballet Theater Africain. In 2007, Mr. Ndlovu performed with South African Ballet Theater, performing the lead in Don Quixote and Jester in Swan Lake, among other roles, and has since had many other important performances and has had a very long, distinguished career. And we're so honored to have both of you speak on our panel today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get started. I just want to share, I wish we could have filmed the conversation that we were having prior to appearing here. And I have to say, quite selfishly, one of the reasons I do this is the amazing people that I get to meet and how it inspires me and helps me grow. And always being able to introduce Montana to the outside world is a very important part of what we do. So I want to thank both of you for being here, Dr. Abraham Kim and Charlene Campbell, and all the people that traveled so far and the hard work and effort to make this possible. So you get to enjoy this now, but we want to say we thank all of you who makes this opportunity present for these people here today. So let's get started. we've got a video that we're going to show, and it's going to be a great dropping off point for this discussion. So if you would, please, the video.
Before we have the video, can we just have the first slide, please? The next one? Sorry. So, as mentioned in my curriculum vitae, I'm the director of the South African International Ballet Competition. And what is very interesting, before I came here, the concept of Ballet Beyond Borders, and Charlene Carey, thank you very much for inviting me to come. I really appreciate it, and I've loved being in Missoula. And the people here have been unbelievably, fantastically warm and welcoming. So thank you very much for having me here. The dancer on the slide in the top left or top right, or depending which way you look at it, is a rock painting that was done thousands of years ago. And we thought ballet was new. That could be any ballet position, either an à la seconde or maybe a strange arabesque or something, all depending on how you look at it. But that's the one thing. Ballet Beyond Borders, for me, there are three kinds of ballet borders. The first is within ourselves, our height, our weight, our age, and we have to overcome those borders first, and we have to go beyond them. And then secondly, it's the borders within our own country. And we have there race, economics, social standing, and many other things. And that is what started me into having the next thing, which is Q-Danza. And Q-Danza is Cuban dance in South Africa. And what happened was that we have for many years in South Africa been the so-called angels, taking young kids from the township, taking them to the city and training them. And yet it hasn't done what it was supposed to have done. So I've decided that we need to start creating small businesses in the townships, and we started training young South Africans who live in the township, some with ballet experience, some with no ballet experience, to become classical ballet teachers. This helps them create jobs and businesses, but at the same time is helping us to spread much wider across South Africa to find the really talented kids so that we can then put those very special kids in one place. And the Cuban methodology has been particularly pertinent to us because the Cubans look like us. They have white people, black people, and inter-race people, and we love the Cubans. And politically, the relationship between the South African government and the Cuban government is fantastic, because in the Battle of Quito Catamol, the Cubans were instrumental in starting the process of stopping racial oppression in South Africa. And so in South Africa, that is a very important thing. So without knowing it, half knowing it, the relationship with Cuba developed into what it is today. And now we can go to the video, I think is the next slide, if I'm right, Shanti, yes? Apparently you just have to wait a moment and then it will load. There.
Soweto, the sprawling black township in South Africa's biggest city, Johannesburg, is synonymous with the struggle against apartheid. 2 decades after the regime of racial separation ended, many cultural divides remain. Traditionally, ballet here was for the white and wealthy. Black South Africans were excluded, leaving a legacy of disinterest. Ballet teacher Muli Mokeli is among those trying to change that.
You know, growing up, we knew ballet as being a white sport, so it's very much new to us, but I know in time, you know, it will get better.
Dirk Badenhorst judges ballet internationally. And
I'm stopping this for a minute because there's a very important and I think insightful part of the opening here. I'm going to ask Andile, who came from the townships, to help us understand what life was like in the townships. And then, of course, as that relates to you growing up and your profession. So give us some insight. And as we're thinking and hearing this, think about even some things that may correspond to situations in our own country here in the U.S., if you would.
Yeah, ballet was not a thing at all in the townships. And why I chose to do Latin American and ballroom was the only thing that was available to us
But I'd like to, and my apologies.
Yes.
Give us a sense of the physical life of growing up in the townships in terms of what existed, what didn't exist, so the challenges that you had to face.
Oh, okay. Discrimination being discriminated by your own kind, by your own people that, you know, share the same skin color as you, and also not having enough lights, not having running water that is consistent, where...
Can I quickly interrupt there?
Sorry.
I was teaching in Mamelodi as another township, and I was saying to the little girls, when you sit in the bath, you can think of turning out your leg. And I had this complete blank expression, and suddenly I was like, how many have baths at home? And there was a class of 37 kids.
Yeah.
And in the end, it turned out that out of the 37 kids, nobody had baths, and only one child had running water in their house. So
yes,
that's some of the stuff, yeah.
That's the thing. So when you see that's only that one child has that privilege, the rest just that's when the fights and the conflicts come in, where you go, oh, so you're special, so I guess you're the one that can go and keep on doing ballet, and then the rest are discouraged, and they'll just go away, just from a simple thing like that. And that will discourage your mind, discourage your will to do something. You know, it seems like somebody else comes in and separates you from the rest of us.
So in the township, as you were growing up, people that were striving to get out,
Yes.
were they looked upon in a way that you were leaving, you were then an outsider?
Yes.
So that the things that you yearned for were not encouraged?
Yes.
The type of ability to grow within that environment was not there?
Yes, it was not there, because also this was not a culture. It's going out, flipping the, pushing the envelope and trying to do something different that no one is doing, or the norm, which is, oh yeah, you come out of the womb and you present a soccer ball, pretty much in Africa. That's what happens with any shape of ball. So, so you just disturbed me for a second, but...
The townships were designed to keep the black people outside of the beautiful city. They were designed in a way that the men had to leave their families in their villages where they came from, and the men were living in hostels, which led to a lot of fighting and drinking and really unhealthy lifestyles. And then suddenly things started changing, but the physicality of the township didn't change with it. So as you could have seen in the previous, in the beginning of the video, the roads are still not great. And it's 2017. The facilities aren't great. When we want to do ballet classes, we sometimes arrive, and it happens today to be the pension payout day, and guys with big guns will stand at the hall, and the kids can't go in, or there's suddenly a church service, and there's nothing against the church service, but really it's the ballet time now, and it just doesn't happen. And many things like that, we are still battling, even though things have changed, and that's what young kids have to overcome.
Still happens today, and so that's why we try to get out of the township. And to be honest with you, some people I know have walked from the township to town. That is about 10 hours of walking, or even half a day of walking, just to go and do something or get out. And some of them don't even come back for days. They figure out a way to find someone that will take them in and teach them something that they are not so used to, or get themselves out of the situations that they're in.
So people are clearly understanding of the differentiation of course, both the wealth, job opportunities, infrastructure or lack of, just educational opportunities. So these are some of the things that you faced as a young man growing up. So then where did that change for you? What was the spark? Who says this young man offers something that is unique here?
My mother always knew me as a very, very strange kid. You know, I
wasn't wrong.
Yes, I'm a really strange person. I'm always intuitive. I'm always asking questions. I'm always pushing you to stop, to really stop saying, to keep me comfortable. I want you to bring yourself out of what I want you to say. If I say to you, Mother, so I want to do ballet. Mother goes, no, 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 no. I say, Mother, why? It's white. Who cares? Who said it's white? No one told me that it was white. I'm going to go there and show them that I can do it too. It's not about that. And that's when the shift happens. So from there, I started with Patricia Palman doing Latin American and ballroom in the township. Why? Because I did not have a soccer team to go and play for. And so my sister tried to go and do Latin American, and then she would pay me to go to class because I said, no, 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 I'm not doing that. This is before ballet. And so I went there, and I went there for girls, obviously, because, you know, that's the only thing available for me at that moment.
Not a bad place to find women if you wanted to.
Yeah, so that's the reason why I did it. And then I realized I have this ability that I haven't unlocked yet. And so after that, this woman says to me, you know, you're good at Latin American, you're doing this, but man, there's more. There's more. I said, what more? Literally goes back into her, because we used to all sleep in her house. Here we go again. My teacher used to, a four-room house. So it would be as half of the stage, where that table is, all the way to the edge of this table. That's how big the house is, with a kitchen, with a living room, with a bedroom in it. And there'll be 10 kids sleeping in the living room in sleeping bags. Or even some didn't have sleeping bags, they will have plastic bags on to keep you warm. Or we'll just huddle together. These are girls, boys, old, young, because we wanted to do it so badly. And she encouraged us to do it. Even though we saw the potential that she saw in us. And so that's what sparked it, to say, if someone cares this much, I can eat. She spends her money from work to feed me and to feed all of us, all 10 of us, to go and buy in bulk and support us. So
what the training teacher in the program is doing is we're actually working with, one of the teachers that we are working is Patricia. And in the past, she was always struggling to find ballet teachers to go and teach where they are, because it's about 45 minutes outside of Johannesburg, and it's a mission to get there. Public transport is not easy. And so we have started training young people in Ennerdale, which is where Patricia lives, to become ballet teachers. And can we maybe, Shanti, continue with the video, please? Don't leave the desk.
Dirk Badenhorst judges ballet internationally and organizes ballet competitions in South Africa. He's pushing to bring more ballet teachers to Soweto.
Are the conditions ideal to do what we are doing? No. Is it the perfect way of doing it? No. But if we don't start somewhere, we're never going to have it.
One of his recruits is Maria de Los Angeles Quintanilla, known affectionately as Miss Maria, an experienced ballet instructor from Cuba. She arrived in South Africa a few months ago and has already developed a strong bond with her students. I have always loved children, she says, but God didn't give me the chance to have my own. The talent is one thing, the physical ability is something else, she says. We need to give the children time to develop the skills, as well as to demonstrate they have real talent.
Ballet has never been big in the Black Townships. There is zero history here. For one thing, there were never any qualified teachers, but now there are. These are the first.
The classes cost $10 a month, but if a family can't afford it, the program doesn't charge. Toba Karl Halle is learning to become one of the instructors.
It is an opportunity that has been available for the minority and the few that can actually be able to afford that. But through these classes and this program, would be able to be disciples to spread it and make it even much wider.
Gustin Mageladisa is a professional dancer and choreographer, also learning to teach.
We need to break away from this thing of saying, oh, this is a white form, of dance, or this is a black form of dance. People need to start getting engaged in other things. So we need to train the kids at a very young age, and that's how we spot talent.
So I love that moment, because the border that exists between the Zulu dance that Andile did earlier and the Le Corsaire that he won the scholarship to go to Washington is one of the things that we are constantly having to overcome. And for me, a border doesn't just keep people out, it also has to let people in. And so that is part of the journey and the struggle that we have in South Africa, is to let people understand that when you say you support ballet, it doesn't mean you don't support the Zulu dance as well. You actually support all forms of dance, everything that will keep the kids off the street, keep the kids creative. I keep on saying the solutions for Africa's problems need to come from Africa, and the arts is what will give us the creativity to be able to develop those solutions. And that really is what is so amazing about the fact that Andile could have come from there and is sitting right next to me and dancing in the Washington Ballet. Can we continue?
John Zunke didn't have an opportunity to take ballet lessons until he was 20, but he is the rare black South African who went on to perform with the Johannesburg Ballet. Now 28, he's excited to be teaching.
To give them what I didn't have, and opportunities to choose, and to train them something that I never had chances to do, and be able to do it and have the most basic thing, foundation.
Connie September is a former cabinet minister and member of parliament with the governing African National Congress. She has pushed the ANC to embrace ballet and recognize its potential.
Okay, so again, part of the journey is, and on 2 nights ago, was it yesterday, Charlene, you had a congressman at your event. For us to have any political support 5 years ago was completely unthinkable. And yet at the last ballet competition in 2016, the Speaker of Parliament and the previous chairperson of the ANC, or African National Congress, literally flew in for 45 minutes to watch part of the competition and then make a speech and then see our young South African dancer Leroy Mokgatle, who then moved on to the Dutch National Ballet, and then she left. The reason why I bring that up and the reason why Ms. September is so important is that it is changing. It is becoming better slowly, very slowly. And that is part of the diplomacy efforts that we have to play. We have to overcome a lot of preconceived ideas. We have to overcome a lot of negativity. We have to overcome many things that people in France take for granted because they've had ballet for 300, 400, 500 years. We are not there yet. And so also in the same vein, the ballet, and this is what is also interesting from this particular competition, is that we constantly are asked to look at artistry rather than technique, because you cannot really compare 300 years of ballet with 2 years of ballet. But if you don't start, as I have mentioned, you will never get there. But also you speak to a different audience. To make ballet that will be accessible to a Sowetan, and I say that very respectfully, is very different from making ballet that is being watched by a person in Paris. And it doesn't have to do anything with race. It has to do with 300 years of cultivating the art form and the people that watch it.
You mentioned something when we were outside discussing this. 30 years ago, you two could not have sat on the same stage together.
That's right.
And there's a consistency here of white and black and race that cannot be ignored. And art and diplomacy, as I continue to think about this, is one of the ways to break through that barrier. So, as you were going to add something to this idea.
Yes, when I left South Africa, I left as a ballet dancer. I didn't leave as a Zulu dancer, I didn't leave as a Latin American and ballroom dancer. So since the day I left, I said I'm going to take my culture to the world. And whether they want to see it or not, I'm going to show it to them. And so all these years, I have been searching and searching and searching to show my culture. And every time I even choreograph for something and I present it out, where I've been to Korea, Japan, and many other countries as well, where I've taken a piece of what Africa is or what my country is and send it out there and tell a story about what I'm doing. Once I choreographed a piece called, I can't remember it now, but something African child or something like that. And I was in a suit, saying, doing the juxtaposition of, this is not an African child. An African child does not wear a suit. You don't get up and wear a suit. And after that, underneath my suit, I was wearing a Zulu outfit. And I took that off and threw it all over the ground. And I said, this is me. Don't think this is me. This is not me. So don't perceive me like that. Just remember that I also do have a culture. I come from somewhere. So now I'm teaching you how all of us can be together in this culture, and also you teach me yours. And I've been going around the world, really, literally going to people and saying, what's your culture, what's your culture, what's your culture? Show me something, show me something. Show me authentic Japanese dancing or tribal dancing or cultural dancing. I go to each and every country to see those things, and that has opened my mind as well. So diplomacy really helps culturally, because then you get to understand the next person. Because if we don't understand that, how are we in Africa gonna go back and teach that and change minds?
But that's why it's also important to do it in South Africa. And in September last year, I hosted an international ballet gala with stars from around the world, but also brought Andile back, and we were mixing classical ballet with another truly South African dance called Missoula. And it really started bringing white South Africans to understand more the Missoula dance, and black South Africans to understand the ballet. And it's that internal diplomacy that for me is so important, because that's where we have to start. That's where we have to overcome so many things, while at the same time he's doing the work outside of the country. We have to continue doing the work inside the country, so that it's a parallel process. You can't wait for the one and then let the other. It will take too long. We have so much to catch up on.
You told a very fascinating story just shortly about taking a trip to Russia and diplomacy and breaking down barriers, if you would share that.
So in 2006, the South African Ballet Theatre, which I was the head at that stage, we decided to go to Russia. And people said, in South Africa, they were very much against it, because they were thinking, why would you take ballet to Russia from South Africa? And for me, it was about benchmarking first and foremost, but also about showing South African, because 3 of the pieces were choreographed by South African choreographers. And we struggled to get the South African embassy to buy 50 tickets, which was $1,000 US. May I repeat that? $1,000 US for the performance, because they said it was too much money. Of course, we were being diplomatic, and we convinced them in the end, after 3 or 4 months, to buy that, and it became 150 tickets. And I went before, and then bumped into 2 of the Department of Arts and Culture in South Africa's officials, who I tried very hard to get hold of in South Africa. And they were in Russia with a group spending $2,000 a day on doing performances for 6 people in the audience. We got there, and in the end, our performance was sold out. It was very well received. And after we had finished, we went away to other parts of Eastern Europe, and a week later we came back. And the South African ambassador, who had arrived in Russia 8 months before, then in the week after the ballet performances, had received more invitations to other embassies and diplomatic events than in the previous 8 months. And so after that, he has become one of my biggest fans, because he started understanding the value of ballet diplomacy, the value of being able to connect through this international language, but using South African artists. And so that is really what this is about for me. And this is why we have to continue doing what we're doing. Please, Shanti.
The kids are being trained by those that are very familiar to themselves, that can speak the language, that understand them and so on, is quite important. If we get this thing right, it will be an absolute explosion in many of our townships.
The classes are attracting children like 8-year-old Felitso Kamani. This is the house in Soweto where she lives with her parents and 2 brothers. Her father is unemployed and her mother works at a supermarket, earning $260 a month.
No, I don't have the money to pay like more money. I think it's expensive at the real school.
She will have an opportunity to understand different cultures. If she is lucky, she will go in different, maybe she can go to Spain, or maybe she can go to Canada and learn about those countries and learn more about the culture of dancing.
Ballet is well established in the former whites-only areas of Johannesburg, still predominantly white, but attitudes toward black participation in ballet have changed. Natasha Ireland is a former ballerina who now teaches.
They have a very difficult and very hard life, which we unfortunately don't understand or realize because we haven't lived through it.
Ireland's studios are state-of-the-art, and lessons here cost 10 times higher than in Soweto. But she believes bringing ballet to the townships is long overdue.
There is a lot of talent out there, and
there's a couple of things here that really stand out. The mother earns $260 a month. If we go to a nice restaurant in Missoula, we take some friends, a couple of bottles of wine, a couple of good dinners, and a tip, you're going to be $250. Just to put a little in perspective. As I listened to this, you had mentioned about building up in terms of when you started, there were 6 people. Now there's 1,000. And how that then, as we see this, think about how that buildup then grows and spreads. And where does that support come from? Because there was also some insight as to the South African government and what at the moment is somewhat problematic in terms of where resources are allocated.
I would say how these resources are allocated is that the Arts and Culture Trust and National Arts Council in South Africa, they are an organization that is connected, right? And they're connected with the government. So what they do is they have these festivals. So they call it cultural, right? And they have budgets, major budgets, that should go through to ballet, to anything that is cultural, right? To African dance, to music, to people learning how to play violins, and to go to the orchestras as well, to make sure that there's an opera or there's ballet orchestra. The ballet uses orchestra to play. So what they do is they have friends that filter money around themselves, and that is what's crippling us. And what happens is now they will have a festival. So they'll put up a big tent, or they'll build up in rands. Let's say, how much is 1 million rands in dollars?
90,000 US dollars.
Yeah, 90,000 US dollars. They'll build a tent, a big, massive tent, and they will have artists. They will have a Zulu dance. That I'm talking about just 6 people in a group, and the musicians is just 2 musicians, and they'll run a show, and they'll have actors and people to tell jokes. People like AKA Trevor Noah, who was struggling as well. Trevor Noah would go on stage as well and still be discriminated for his color of his skin.
And the artist will receive that much, and the administrators will fly business class to the event and stay in the 5-star hotel, where the artist will be told you can find a bed and breakfast, and if you're lucky, it will have a nice breakfast.
Yeah, and what we were offered, if I would do something like this, in dollars, the lady said 250, right? A month.
Right.
I would get $10 for that performance. And I would have an hour-long performance. And $10, that doesn't include transportation, food, or anything else. You only get food on the day of the show. The rehearsals, how many days? 2 weeks probably. So already you're struggling just to get to rehearsal. So what about the rest? And whether you cry, whether you don't cry, you're still gonna be left to just be empty, really. But because of the pride and the respect of what you do and the joy of where you come from and this whole thing of overcoming, that's what makes me mad, because I'm so tired of overcoming. There's some people that are not overcoming anymore, and I have to still keep overcoming. How long am I going to overcome? That was something that made me really upset. So that's how the funds are stretched out along the way.
So when we were talking outside, I was talking about the fact that the director in the Department of Arts and Culture, in charge of cultural development, who is really a fantastic guy, at the age of 40-odd, has never been to a classical ballet performance, has never seen live classical ballet. And yes, it's frustrating, but on the other hand, it is my job to try and educate as well. If I don't, it's never going to happen. If we don't bring Andile back, he will not be the role model for the next Andile and the next and next. And the multiplier effect that Bob had spoken about just now. Originally it was 6 kids, now I have 1,000, somebody else has 200, somebody else. And it is growing and growing and growing. And at one stage we are going to be able to have a ballet revolution. And that's really what I'm striving towards, is to be able to get to a point where we will have enough voices in and outside of South Africa saying, we want this thing called classical ballet. Can we continue, please?
I'm vexed and stressed because I got the big sign of the 5 minutes, actually now 1 minute. So I feel that we've just given we've just teased you with what could be an hour-long conversation from this point forward, and would love to engage the audience with questions, because I know you do have those questions. These two wonderful gentlemen will be around. If you do wish to approach and ask some questions, I think they would be very happy to answer and engage with you. I can't say enough for the effort and time that you've taken to come here and to share with us. We are so grateful for that and honored to have both of you here. And I'd like to give each of you an opportunity to say what you wish to Montanans and the message that you want to leave here today.
I'd like to wish that we all understand where each other come from, and to have the understanding of how could we be of service to anyone that we meet. I really believe in service, and it's my biggest motto. So if we all can just come together and share in what we bring to Montana and out of Montana, because we have to take these memories. Memories are really grateful. I'm just going to go downstairs and write something about this today because it's a memory. So one day I don't want to forget it. So I really think that everyone here should go back and write in your diaries about the memories that you've had in Montana, because that is something that you can take with you longer, and one day you will read about it and say, hey, I met Andile, and now he's like a famous movie star, right? So and I can say the same thing and say, I want to go back to Montana and see everyone that lives there, that I've shared so much with, that I have been part of this Ballet Beyond Borders. And I'm really appreciative of Charlene to find me somewhere in this country and bring me here and bring my African heritage and African culture to you. And I'm really happy about that. And thank you so much for having me here. I would love to come back more and more to see all you guys' lovely faces and your warm spirits. So thank you so much for being part of Ballet Beyond Borders, because I respect every one of you. And thank you so much.
Ndlovu, thank you.
We are hosting the 6th South African International Ballet Competition in Cape Town, the 26th of February to the 4th of March. So let there not be borders between Ballet of Montana and all of the teachers that are here. Come to South Africa, come and experience what we are doing, come and help with what we are doing, support emotionally, physically, financially if you can. And I would like, Andile spoke of how Charlene had found him. I think one person that both of us share as a very, very special friend of ours who is South African born but lives in New York is Shala again. And Shala, thank you very much for all that you do.
Thank you, Shala.
Ongoingly. You are indeed a very special person. Charlene, thank you very much. And Bob, thank you very much for a wonderful time with all of you. What do you call yourself? Missoulans?
Missoulians.
Missoulians. Missoulians, you are a wonderful bunch of people. Thank you very much.
Thank you.